of course it. Hmm?
Welcome everyone to our social kitchen. My name is Jenna and I'm a pastry chef, and today, as you can see, I'm also going to be a baker. I'm going to be showing you how to make this wonderful focaccia bread, as you can see in front of me. The ingredients are really simple. For this bread today, we're using 1 packet of yeast. I've got 11 grams of normal salt. I've got as much sea salt flakes as you'd like to use. I've got Maldons here. I've got 415 grams of water, and I've got 568 grams of cake flour. So I've got some black and red grapes. I've just got a pot that I'm going to add my grapes into. I'm just going to roughly cut these in half. Any kind of grape is fine. I like to add or use the red grapes because we're using red wine. It just gives it more color. So I've got my grapes here, about half a punnet of red grapes, and to that I'm going to add 1 cup of red wine. Any red wine that you have. You don't have to use wine at all, actually. You can just replace the wine with water. I know using wine in cooking, right now we have very limited quantities and it sounds like a terrible idea. But in my opinion, it's an investment because we're investing it into making good bread. I've got my wine in here, and I've got a tablespoon and a half of granulated white sugar. I'm just going to sprinkle that in there, and basically what we're making is grape and red wine reduction. I'm going to put that on the stove to boil up in the background. You can just put that on high heat. We want it to reduce by half. So in the meantime, I'm going to put my flour. So I've got cake flour in the mixer. I'm going to add my yeast to my flour when I can get it open. Give that a rough little mix just to evenly distribute the yeast and the dry ingredients together, just like that. Okay, so when it comes to what kind of flour to use and what's the difference, with cake flour, it's really light and fluffy and soft. And when you make it with bread flour, slightly chewier texture. I feel like we expect more of a focaccia bread. Bread flour kind of gives it a bit more backbone and chew. So it's really up to you. That's still cooking down. I'm going to add my water to my flour. And I'm just going to roughly mix everything together. Just on a low speed. We're just going to allow this to sit and the flour to fully absorb all the water. So while that's happening, we're going to take some rosemary. I've got wonderful rosemary from the garden. As you can see, I've got a slight rosemary obsession. And just take some sprigs off. We'll do maybe 2 of these. I'm going to start chopping my rosemary quite fine because this is what's going to go inside our bread. So we're going to have rosemary inside and on top. Note that I haven't added my salt to my mixture yet. I've got my fine salt aside. I'll only add that at a later stage. You should never put salt directly on top of yeast, because if you add the salt, it actually can kill the yeast. If your water is too hot as well, it can burn the yeast and actually kill it and prevent it from rising. I switched off my grape. You see it's quite hot at the moment, so I'm just going to allow it to cool down slightly because we don't want to add this super hot mixture into the flour. As I've just said, it can kill the yeast and also it will cook the gluten if it's too hot. So we're just going to give that a minute or 2 to cool down. So I'm just adding that in the meantime. As you can see, it's very rough. We haven't added the salt yet. This is actually great timing. I've made a second batch of bread so that you'll be able to see obviously the full process from beginning to end in one go. Excuse my cake tin. I'm short on containers. Funny one. So what I've got here is 1 batch of bread that I've already made. So I'm just going to take a bowl with water because this gets so sticky, and just wet your fingertips, and you want to lift up the dough like this, and we're just going to fold it over. And we're going to do opposite side to opposite side, and this is called the stretch and fold method. The reason we're doing this is to align the gluten strands in the bread, and we also, as you can see when we lift it up and put it down, we're actually trapping air bubbles into the bread, and that's what's going to help contribute to its beautiful bubbly texture. There we go, the opposite side. Put your hands right underneath. You can do it up to maybe 4 times. What we're looking for is for the bread to actually double in size, like a normal proof. I'm using cling wrap over a dishcloth because the cling wrap will actually help keep the humidity inside, which is what we want because it must be a really nice, humid, moist environment for the bread to live its best life and thrive. Okay, so we've got our grape mixture. It has cooled down. I'm going to now add my salt to the mixer. Bearing in mind we've got our rosemary in here, our salt, and I'm going to have it on a very low speed. So we're going to add our red wine and grape mixture. We obviously don't want it to go too fast and splash all the way up the sides. Okay, sorry, the grapes are a bit shy. Now we're just going to mix that on a low speed until it's well combined. I'm going to turn it up faster. We're going to get the show on the road. The party is in full formation here, in full force. You can see it's got a beautiful color. This now must mix for about 5 minutes to get really good gluten development, and it's going to become a really nice soft smooth dough. So if you saw from the previous look now in the machine, you can see how sloppy and wet it looks. Like I said, it's a really wet dough, but over time the gluten is going to form more in the dough, and it's going to build up strength, and it's going to come away from the side of the bowl completely and from the bottom. There's some action going on here. You can see how it's starting to come away from the side of the mixing bowl, and it's stuck to the attachment. So we're going to mix it probably for another one minute or so, because it's still stuck to the bottom and it's mostly come away from the side. So we'll give it another minute. As you can see, imagine doing this by hand. I mean, we'll be here until Christmas. Okay, so I'm going to be using this container to prove the bread. A little tip to use a really large container with the lid, because then you don't have to use plastic and waste plastic. We're just going to put it in a container with the lid, and that's going to keep it nice and moist inside without having to use the clear wrap. Okay, let me just show you where we're at with the breads. As you can see, we've got good gluten development here. It's quite wet and sticky. I'm just going to mix it for about 1 more minute. So I want to get really good gluten development. My bread dough is ready now. It's got a really beautiful shine to it, which is what we're looking for. That's a really good indication that it's got good gluten development. It's been worked really well. It's nice and stretchy. We're going to put some olive oil, and remember, focaccia baby is all about the oil, so don't be shy, okay? We're going to take the dough using a wet hand. Just going to scrape it, and into the container it goes. Now we're going to do the first roll and fold. That's the pastry chef in me. The first stretch and fold. Hands wet again, fingertips. Good to have a little bowl of water on the side. And we're going to lift it up and pull it over just like that. And then we go to the opposite side. We're going to lift it up, and you see the oil just makes it really easy to work with. Also helps it from sticking to your hands. We're going to lift it up and pull it over, trapping those air bubbles inside the dough. I'm going to do that again on the other side. We do this to align the gluten structures in the bread, and then at the end, you just pick it up and you just gently put it on itself. That just unifies that whole mass of dough. That's our first roll. Fold and stretch and fold. So that's done its first little number, and now I'm going to show you how to make your own little DIY prover at home. A great way to turn it into a prover is just to put it on its very low setting, so just after 0, and onto its normal kind of bake fan function. So the temperature inside is really cold or cool, but it's warm enough to prove the bread without killing the yeast. Okay, and that's it. Now we're going to allow it to prove, basically double in size. The amount of stretch and folds is determined by how much it's grown in size. It's very weather dependent. If it is a warmer day, it will go faster. Or we can just cheat and use the oven as a prover. So that's a great tip. We want our bread quickly because we want to eat it quickly. Okay, so now we're just going to start prepping the accessories for our bread. I'm gonna cut some more grapes here into halves, just like we put inside the bread. And it's great because the timer for my bread has just gone off. So we're gonna do, it's probably final shaping now. I know it looks like nothing now. Like I said, that little dough, she becomes big, okay? I mean, love is my main ingredient when I bake, so it's definitely gonna get there. Grapes ready to go. Right, so we've got our salt, we've got our grapes, and let's take some rosemary. We're going to be using an industrial bain-marie to bake it, purely because we have these and they're great for baking. But I know a lot of people at home don't have these kind of baking trays. So I would recommend a baking tray works very well, a normal shallow baking tray. Even bread tins, if you want to break the dough up into smaller amounts into bread tins, that works really well too. If you don't have a baking tray, I suggest you buy it because it's a great investment and you can use it for so many other things as well. So we're going to prep this bain-marie with more oil. You guessed it. So we're just going to use our fingers to spread it around. Depending on the dish, the bread can stick. So I feel it's best to use some olive oil with a coat of spray and cook as well. Any spray and cook will work just fine. Wet those hands again. So now we're going to put our dough into the bain-marie. Get every last bit out there. I always say what's left over is profit, but that could be a whole mouthful of bread I'm missing out on. I'm not about that. And now we're going to start stretching it out. So again, hands into the water, and we want to go underneath, and we basically just want to just pull and stretch. So you just want to make sure that it's really nice and evenly spread. Okay. And focaccia is all about the fingertips, baby. So when you put everything in, you just squash it down with your fingers. Now we're going to put our grapes. And it's great because it's grape because they look like olives, which is quite cool. I'm going to just sprinkle them over the top, as many or as little as you want. Push some of the grapes inside the bread. So we have some on top, we have some inside. So I've put the oven on 200 degrees. So now we're going to put the rosemary. As you can see, we've got a lot of rosemary. Note, I haven't put my sea salt flakes on yet. I want to put them on last, because if you put them on too soon, what happens is they actually start to dissolve and break down, and you don't see those beautiful flakes after they've baked. Once again, you guessed it, olive oil. We've got to live our best lives in these times. Going into the oven, nice big bubbles, olive oil. Oh my gosh, almost forgot my salt. Put the salt on top, as much or as little as you like. Okay, and now that's going to bake away. We've got a combination of things that would go really well with the bread. So I'm just going to finish waiting for my bread to bake in the oven. You know it's going to look like this, hopefully anyway. No, I'm kidding. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope you bake this bread at home. If you do, please let me know. Please also check out our Social Kitchens Facebook page to find out more about what they're about. Support your local farmers, use local ingredients. Thank you, and happy baking, and stay safe, and maybe see you on the next one. Cheers!